Hey, hello, hello. Perfect. So, hey guys. Hey, hey, how's it going? Good, perfect. So, welcome to the presentation. My name is Vikiival, and I'm a long-term builder and open source contributor in the Dotama ecosystem. And today we'll talk about the reactive NFTs. And first, let's start like what the NFTs are, and most basically your friends, when you talk them about NFTs, they'll say like, "Oh, those are the pricey picture of the monkeys on the blockchain or the OpenSea, right?" And yeah, basically it's true, but on the other side, in the nature, it's are the bytes represent which are representing the unique item on the blockchain, which often comes with the metadata in the form of JSON, saved on the IPFS or the ARI. And these metadata hold various properties, such as name, description, or if it's a game item, it has sort of attributes, like the color of the background, or if the PFP has a mustache or not, or glasses. And you see this metadata on any NFT marketplace, such as KodaDot. But for the marketplaces to be compatible, we use sort of the standard, and the current metadata standard is the OpenSea one. There are also more upcoming standards, but we'll see. What are the modern approaches into the NFTs? First of all, you have seen on Twitter those hexagonal profile pictures, which basically, yeah, it's better to have PFP on Twitter than to post the pictures of your Lambo, because you know nobody cares about your Lambo. The monkey is just more cool, and it signals your portfolio and the wealth better. And also, it shows that you are belonging to some tribe of like-minded people. Next use case is like composing NFT. So if you have a playable character in like any common game, you can skill your character, give it sort of skills, casting sort of magic, then buying more items such as armor or swords, and then sell it as a whole on the marketplaces, for example, like the KodaDot. Then, third use case is remixing the NFTs. So if you have two audio songs, you as a skilled DJ can put two songs together, remix it, post it on the marketplace, and then the original authors can get the royalties from your art. And actually, the most common use case currently with NFTs is actually giving them some utility, except the profile pictures. So back in the past, we were playing with the car sharing. So having car represented as a non-fungible token, and also the unlock keys as a token, you can create basically the functional car sharing thing. Also, NFTs could serve as a POAP. So if you are here on the amsterDOT, you can basically get another NFT as a POAP. So you'll remember, yeah, I were here. And the POAP can unlock you more discounts to maybe another conferences. And the last null use case was presented by the Uniswap. They are creating like on-chain NFT, which shows your current LP position. So if you are providing liquidity to these DeFi protocols, you can get the NFT showing, yeah, I'm providing the liquidity. But still, something is really missing. When you were playing the DeFi games, such as DeFi Kingdom, you just go and crop your fields, then go and mine your jewel, but still your MetaMask was like popping up like, make a transaction, make a transaction, make this transaction. And the thing is to decrease the number of like this wild MetaMask popping off. And also, if you played with some NFT palette in the Substrate, for example, on StateMine or on the Basilisk, you see that it's super opinionated and built for the one specific use case, so basically for the NFT marketplaces. But having less opinionated code, we allows the developers to be like more creative and to create like nicer apps or more creative one. And third problem is that we can have the programmable and personalized assets. So imagine for users, we can render their specific NFT based on their wallet. For example, if they use Talisman, they can have the specific color of the NFT or so on. So what are the reactive NFTs? And we come up basically with 3 approaches. And think of this as is a Mansell model instead of like smart contract. And the premise is instead of making like a ton of the transactions, the Mansell model is updating the state of the NFT, such as owner, price, or the metadata. And using the set of the approaches we came up with, the NFT can deterministically update itself. So now you are thinking like, what's this magic? And let's talk about it. We have, as I mentioned, 3 approaches. First is like conditional NFTs. So similarly as you have smart home, it's using the model of if this then that. So if the sun goes down, you can set the color of your lights. We can do the same with the tokens. Then we have hook-enabled features. So we are extending the existing Substrate calls with additional call. And then we have the token as an entity. So imagine that the NFT has a balance on the Substrate and the rights to make transactions. So conditional NFTs are the simple algorithms that can be evaluated either on-chain or on the client side. And for example, based on the connected user, his wallet he's using, or the wallet provider, or current on-chain randomness, we can enable like sort of specific functionality. So as I mentioned before, you can change the color of their NFT, or you can take the shape, or you can render whatever else. And the nice example could be that if you have more than previous owner for the NFTs, you can say, okay, this NFT shouldn't be shown anymore, so you show no image on the marketplace. And then there is hook-enabled calls, and they are inspired by the React and Vue. And the premise is like, as the component shows on the your web, it goes through the life cycle. And similarly, your NFT goes to life cycle too. So once you created the NFT, then you can transfer it, and then you can basically burn it. That's the whole life cycle of the NFT in general. And we are extending this call, extrinsic calls, with another option call. But now you may ask, like, why no batch? We have it in the Substrate. And you basically don't want to allow like specific and advanced functionality, such as the scheduler, for users to use in another harmful way. So for example, you have the scheduler, and which you can use on Kusama, but using the specific NFT palette, you can use it. And also, the best thing, we have something called the palette-based hooks, which we can use for lazy minting. And we can mint the NFTs only when you have additional free space in the block, which is called on idle. Oh, nice. So as you see on the graph, the life cycle is just simple. And when you, for example, creating the token, you may ask, like, do you have any hook? If not, then just finish the call as it is. If you have this hook or another call, can it pass the filter? So for example, scheduler can pass it, but for example, another batch of calls can pass the call, because then you would break the chain. So if you can't pass the filter, we just finish the call as it is, because you want, basically the primary function is to create the NFT, and the call is optional, and just emit the fail event that, okay, this call wasn't even executed. And if your optional call can pass the filter, you can just execute the call. So for example, the schedule listing, it would be like perfect feature. So instead of posting on Twitter like, yeah, I'm gonna be listing my NFT at 1 p.m., you just schedule it, and natively the Substrate handle it itself. And the third premise is like having token as an entity. And we are thinking like, what if NFT has is basically an account with a balance. And imagine that token could be like a part of the governance. So instead of having people or a person representing in the governance, you can have like a company or the whole DAO as like one entity in the governance itself. And in Web2 thing, you can imagine that as a company-based account. So it's nice. And you may ask, like, why do you need this? Because we have proxy accounts and multisig in Substrate. And also, the premise is simple. You can't trade these accounts. You can't say, like, this is my private key, use it, and give me, I don't know, 10 kusamas. Now, you can use the secondary markets and actually sell your NFT to someone else. So basically, in the Web2 world, you can say, like, you are acquiring another token because the NFTs can hold another NFTs. And the best feature is we don't want to abandon the multisigs and the proxy, and you can still operate them behind. And really, really the best part is the native, so we don't need to come up with the rocket science, so we don't need to come up with another like language for these. We can use natively the Substrate palettes and the smart contracts for Solidity and the ink. And for the palettes, we can simply extend the existing NFT palettes with the optional call. And then we can leverage the off-chain workers to, for example, to generate art or to update the IPFS. So, for example, if you have the car sharing and your car crashes, you can use that off-chain worker to update the IPFS metadata that the car crashed and update the metadata on the IPFS. And for the smart contract, we can simply wrap the existing ERC721 into the reactive contract, and using the delegate calls, we can make it working as like smooth. And what are the potential use cases we have in mind? For example, it's the schedule minting and listing for the marketplaces or for the users. Then the second is the generative art. So as Uniswap is doing the LP positions, buzzers can do the same with the liquidity mining. So they can generate art for the user, so you can frame, and show, I have this position. And also, we can update the off-chain state, so if you crash the car, you can update it. And you may ask, like, where I can use it. We are building also the MetaPrime, which is the parachain on the Kusama and the KodaDot. And we call it as an experimental landscape, which means that if you are building your own game or your own virtual world based on the palette, we are happy to load it. So basically bring your own palette and play with it. And the reactive NFTs, like sort of the use case, or one of the use cases for us. And to sum it up, reactive NFTs can open like more cool stuff. And if you would like to build on something on top of it, we are welcoming like external contributors to KodaDot. We are still open source. And if you would like to build something, we would be happy to pay you a bounty. And don't forget to fork our repo, give it a star, build something useful, make the world better, and also follow us on Twitter. So at KodaDot, and I'm Vikiival. So thank you.